4 years after separation, now he wants to talk. Warning, long post from a newbie. So, the ex exploded into violence 4 years ago. Threw a dining chair. I think he was going to throw it at me, but turned at the last minute and hurled it into the kitchen instead and screamed he wanted a divorce. Pretty sure he'd been having an affair for over 12 months at that point, though he swore he was just getting together with a friend to play video games damn near every weekend. That weekend, because the trains weren't going to be running, he had to stay home, which pissed him off and led to this violent outburst. Our neighbors were about to call the police because I screamed thinking you're about to be hit by a chair will do that. Anyway, he eventually trotted out this story about how he wasn't happy, hadn't been happy for a long time, yada yada yada. I think the truth was more that he had been planning an exit strategy. His temper got the better of him and now he had to do some fast talking. Long story short, he left me in a house I couldn't afford to rent on my own, the goods and chattels of 17 years of marriage to deal with, and swanned off with his clothes, his computer and most of the spices from the kitchen. Fancies himself a great cook. I coped. Barely, in the early days, but eventually I got back on my feet and I've done fine without him. And I've heard nothing from him in 4 years, save 2 times. The first was when the police couldn't contact me for a welfare check. Long story, I was fine. They were calling the wrong number. They called him, likely because they have access to public records that show he is my husband. He was pissed that he'd been disturbed when I was apparently okay. Then it was Facebook messages when he somehow found out I was booked for a cruise. Very snarky tone on those. Guess he was jealous. Now, 4 years post-separation, he texts me out of the blue with "I know I hurt you, I want to apologize." Wasn't buying that for a second, figured he wanted something. When I didn't respond to the texts, it was Facebook messages, likewise ignored. Then a phone call, not answered, and a voicemail about wanting to talk. Now, I discovered through some Facebook oversharing from a relative of his that he's been removed from his partner's home. There was police involvement. I don't know the whole story, but it does point to him wanting either money or a place to stay. Neither of which I'm prepared to give him. I've had to block his phone number, so I don't keep seeing the texts or issued calls, but he can still leave voicemails. The latest one was a sad, pathetic tone, still just wanting to talk. We aren't divorced. I was damned if I was going to pay a lawyer and filing fees to enable him to live happily ever after with his AP. I'd be prepared to do it now, to protect myself and the assets I had when we got married, or that I accumulated while supporting his non-working essay for years. Also, I'm in Australia, so divorce laws may differ to those in other countries. I'm safe from him physically. He is unlikely to have my current address, or know where I work. Plus he doesn't drive. I just need bucking up not to feel sympathy for him. If he hasn't developed a support network of friends, that's not my problem to solve for him, is it? Update: anyone else find things they once enjoyed are now poisoned by memories of their ex, or is it just me? My ex has been out of my life for over 4 years, but his influence still lingers, and it's kind of ticking me off. There are movies I just can't watch, because he was obsessed with them. Anytime I try, I'm dragged back into his overreaction to them. I grew up a fan of Doctor Who from the time I was a wee tot. Patrick Troughton was my first Doctor, so that's a damn long time. But he had to have an opinion about every new Doctor, and be past remarkable, as my dear old mum would have said about the episodes. To the point where I can't be excited about the new season, and I didn't even watch the last season, because it's like he's there with me, and I'm waiting for his snarking to start. I spent years before I even met him making big crocheted blankets, and I've recently donated them to charity, because every time I looked at them, all I could see was him using them. Donating them was a good thing. There will be families who could use a good blanket or two, but it ticks me off that he spoiled them for me. Maybe this is just more of the PTSD that I was diagnosed with in the aftermath of our relationship ending. Possibly brought on by having a pie searching for him to get an address so he can be served with divorce papers finally. Hell, I see someone walking from the train station towards my house as I drive home and I freeze for a moment, thinking maybe it's him. I've got such a great life now that he's gone, but it's like he's spoiling it with his memory. Is this just me, or has something like this happened to anyone else? And when does it stop? Redditor's reactions story 2 after. Redditor 1, yes, my counselor advised me that it's unhealthy to avoid triggers. There was a song that reminded me of my ex. I listened to it every time I ran. Hard at first, but after a while, now reminds me of running LOL. So watch Doctor Who. Watch and watch and watch. Redditor 2, you mean like sleeping on a sofa because the bed has had too many other strangers in it with X and you can't afford to replace it, so you sleep on a sofa for months and months and then forget even about the bed existing at some point? Yeah. It sounds familiar. Redditor follow-up. I cut mine up and tossed it. Eventually you find a new one, or a used one from a clean household. Redditor 3. I'm still going through it even after she got married, and I feel like I'll never be able to move on even when I try. Story 2. Husband had an affair with a co-worker and now she won't leave us alone. It has been a tough road to walk, but we're working on reconciliation. As it was a co-worker, the first step was to quit his job. This was the bare minimum if he even wanted to consider even talking to me. I brought up several times that I thought she was getting too close but was assured that they were just friends. He was requested to change his phone number. I messaged the AP from my husband's phone. All the text message history had been deleted, so I have no idea what's been said between them, that she was to leave us alone and not contact us, or I would go to the police for harassment. In Australia it's classed as a civil matter, and you can get a court order for them to leave you alone. When hubby went into work to drop off his laptop etc., she was hiding out the front waiting to speak to him. He told her to leave him alone, that it was over. 1 week passes and we have days and days of crying and working out if we can't even save this. I go back to work, and the Friday of the following week she shows up outside my son's school to ambush my husband because she knows he picks up our son. She asks him not to tell me because she doesn't want me to call the police. She tells him that she loves him and will be waiting for him. She asks if she can drop off the Christmas present she got him to our house. He tells her I wasn't there, but this is what he tells me: that even if things don't work out with me and him, he won't go to her, that he is going to tell me, and asks her to leave us alone. She promises never to contact him again. My husband tells me straight away and proceeds to have a panic attack. He says he felt ambushed and like he had no control. It really shook him up and highlighted how badly he ducked up our life. He was very apologetic and was sure he'd been firm enough that she would not contact him again. We move on with our lives and begin MC and working towards our reconciliation. We have up days and down days, and then we spend the Christmas holidays together. It's tough, and TBH, I still think about the infidelity every day. It's my first thought when I wake up in the morning, and it hits me at the most vulnerable times. But my husband is being accountable and answering any questions I have. We're doing the work with MC and trying to make it work. 2 days ago she messages him in Facebook just checking to see if he's okay. You see, she was in a controlling relationship and she was portraying her perceptions onto my husband and I. It allowed her the moral high ground to entice my husband, which she 100% did. At no point am I saying he is not an adult man who made his own choices, but she actively pursued him despite having met me and knowing we were married with kids. So she messaged to check in with him to see how he was doing. I knew she wouldn't be satisfied with not being with him based on what I've been told about their relationship, so I wasn't surprised when she reached out, but my husband was absolutely serious. He immediately called Police Link to ask what his options are, and the next day we were down at the police station making a complaint. We have to lodge an order and then submit it to court. We will then be given a hearing date where the judge will decide whether it turns into a criminal matter if she tries to contact us again. All this has brought it up again to the front of my mind. Like how he knew her address because that's where they ducked. How she bought him presents but he told her to return them because I would find out. It's a pretty acidy feeling because I truly love him and it hurts every day. Update: how do I stop myself thinking about AP looking at her social media? Some context is my husband had an EA which turned into a PA with a colleague. She knew he was married and actively pursued him, and he was dumb enough to get with her. It went on for about 2-3 months, and she was heavily invested in cementing herself in his life. She, I believe, was hoping that he would leave me for her. Since then he has cut contact. She approached him where she knew he would be, and he asked her to stop contacting him. She created a new Facebook and messaged him a couple days after Christmas with her profile photo of her wearing his shirt. I believe my husband has completely cut contact with her and is actively working with me towards reconciling. However, I find myself checking her social media. She posts things about how 2021 broke her, and no matter how much you love someone, you can still mean nothing to them at the end. She posts quotes from my husband's favorite author, the most obscure author that has only ever written one book. And all these pining after someone quotes. I don't know why I do it, but I keep looking. Like I'm waiting for her to give up on him and realize that we're trying to make it work. It's like I don't want her out there waiting for him, and it bothers me. The his shirt thing bothers me. Like, how dare she have an item of his clothing? Husband says it's a shirt he didn't like and won't wear again, and he gave it to her as a friend before anything started because they were having a Hawaiian shirt day. He also lent another lady in the office a shirt on the same day. My issue is the other lady isn't keeping it as a memento. I go through stages where I'm okay and I have her blocked, and then I'll get the need to see what she's up to and I'll unblock her. I know it's not what's best for my path to reconciliation with my husband, but I keep getting drawn back in. Update: husband found something given to him by AP and didn't tell me until I brought it up. We're about 3 months into reconciliation and things have been progressively improving. I'm finding myself trusting him more and no longer have that guy gnawing me to check his phone and location, etc. 2 days ago we were moving furniture around and were in his study. We were wrapping up and going upstairs to start making dinner when I picked up his old work bag and went to look for his sunnies, which he's been missing, to see if they were in there. He got a bit snappy and told me to put it down and don't look for his sunnies. It made me instantly feel suspicious, but I pushed it to the back of my mind, hoping it was just my betrayed spouse brain going into overdrive. I went to work the next day, and in the afternoon I was driving home and just had a couple of bad thoughts. Just visualizing AP and some generalized bad thoughts. Tried to again brush it off and not dwell on it. Husband and I had a little spat cooking dinner, so I didn't want to bring it up and make it worse. I kind of just pushed my bad feelings down and went about the night. We ended up having some friends over, which husband wasn't thrilled about what we had the spat over, and after they left I was feeling down again. I brought up how I'd had a bit of a bad afternoon. He asked what happened and I mentioned the bag thing. He then volunteered that he'd found something in the bag given to him by AP. I immediately thought he'd known it was there yesterday, which is why he didn't want me to touch it. We got into a fight about it and he told me that he didn't know the pair of shorts were there until he'd found them that day. He went looking for his sunnies quickly, found the shorts and was running late, so didn't think anything of it and promptly forgot about them. He says he doesn't care that they exist, they mean nothing to him. If he was hiding them, why would he have volunteered the information when I spoke about it? If he was hiding them, then he would have moved them and not left them there because he forgot. He agrees that it does look sus, but he's telling the truth. After last night's fight, he's going to throw them out and make sure I never have to see them again. He can't see things from my side because he's never been cheated on. He acknowledged that he should have told me, but he forgot in the hustle of running late. He now claims that it feels like my trust in him is back to zero. He thinks we're back to the beginning. I try to be reasonable, but I think my brain just switched over to survival protect myself mode. I told him that he wasn't supporting me and reassuring me enough, and he said he wasn't in a good position to comfort me because I was accusing him. It's a bit of a mess right now. Story 3, 4 years later and this crazy crap is still happening. So, my ex-husband and I split up 4 years ago. He was on affair number 2 with another family friend. He left. I groveled and begged for our family, but now of course I realize how unhealthy I was trying to hold on to him. Yuck. Since the very beginning, every time his mistress' new wife are around me, they put on this PDA show like it's going to break me or something. At the beginning, I think they were trying to prove I was unstable because that was why he had to cheat and try to get more custody of our 3 kids. It failed. I picked myself up and took care of myself and my babies and moved on. But 4 years later, they still do this shit. When I drive up to his house to get the kids, they all come out and parade around, hugging and being handsy and loudly saying their goodbyes in the front yard. When we go to sporting events, my mom tells me, because I refuse to give them my time or attention, that whenever I cheer for our kids, his wife immediately starts with the back rubs and affectionate squeezes and kisses. I don't understand. I don't react. I ignore them. I have never broken down and flipped out over it, so why do they keep trying? Anybody have insight? It bothers me in a sense that it is this big show they feel they have to put on, like we're in the 7th grade and they're trying to intimidate me. Anyone else deal with this craziness? Redditor's reaction story 4 after. Redditor 1, can you imagine affecting someone so much that they change their love language just to prove to you that they are in love? It's pathetic. And the way you deal with it is perfect. Just ignore it. They are fake people living fake lives. You have better things to do. Redditor 2, I would think that the wife former M stress is insecure when you are around, therefore she feels that she has to act this hard. It sounds like she knows that if you wanted him you could have him. Redditor 3, it's insecurities. Trying to reinforce she is his main squeeze. If she felt secure, she wouldn't be doing this. Then again, she married a cheater, so she can cling all she wants, but it won't last. Redditor follow-up, as a therapist she's probably fully aware of how cheaters behave and her current relationship situation. There is some sort of karma going on here. Redditor 4, I'm only 23 years old, but I grew up having to see my mom's ex-husband's AP at family gatherings and celebrations. I'm connected to the ex-husband because my mom had 2 kids with him, who are my half-brothers. Every time she saw my mom, you can tell she was tense. Grabbing onto my mom's ex-husband tighter. Giving my mom dirty looks. Doing more to look like she was a good wife and happy. Trying to control her husband to not look at my mom. You get my gist. In reality, my mom's ex-husband was checking out my mom and yearning for her on the inside. He was still in love with my mom and even admitted to my brother that he missed my mom and regrets what he did. He fell out of love with the AP after having 4 kids, I can tell you from my POV as a kid. I even caught on to the signs of her distress. Lol. I was an 8-year-old questioning why the AP was so jealous and acting so immature, and I didn't even have the right words for it yet. Even as a kid, I picked up that the AP was super insecure and jealous of my mom. She was threatened and still is to this day. You would think the person who stole my mom's husband would be happy, but she never was and still isn't. I have never seen the AP in a calm state around my mom. She constantly does everything to make my mom feel like acid and as if she was above her. It's obsession. My mom, just like you, never reacted to her tactics for almost 2 decades. Everyone here is right. She knows she originated as a side piece and she's jealous that you had him first and scared that he probably might have feelings still. Or maybe she feels like you're better than her. He's probably still trying to protect his ego and convince himself that he didn't make a mistake or that he won in the end. My friend, you're the real winner.